Release 4.2.1 comes with a whole slew of functionality that I think those players who've been sitting on the sidelines are going to be very interested to come and jump back in and give it another try. And it also helps the main event is something very similar to Supply and Die was, which saw a ton of new players and players returning into the verse. It isn't a PvP event, although there will be a bit of PvP involved if you're interested. But let's jump in and look at the details of what's included in this massive release. Let's jump into one of the best things in this release right off the hop here. So the Wikelo missions have actually been split up based on the reward and the destination that you're going to get it at. Now, when you choose your mission, you actually choose the specific reward at the specific location that you want to receive it, gather the things that you need, and turn it in at that location. No longer are you kind of tied into this small, medium, or large reward, especially with the ships. Now you can specifically say, I want the military variant of the F8C Lightning. Now, along with that, they've actually done a massive tweak to what's required to get those ships. Because now that they've split them out, they can actually set different criteria to receive each of those rewards. Whereas before, I think the criteria was a lot lower, but you potentially had to do it 4, 5, 6 times to get that specific variant of the F8C that you were looking for. Definitely an improvement. I love the fact they're listening to the community on this one. So along the very same lines, the cargo missions have actually also been split up. So the cargo missions now are split up based off the size. So you have the rookie ones in one section and all the other sizes of cargo missions in different sections. That's not as helpful as the Wikelo missions, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. Personally, I would love to see something done about the location that you're in, but hey, I'll take what I can get. So there's also a new mission type, Ship Escort. Essentially, this comes in 6 different levels under the Foxwell group, and it's actually available in both Stanton and Pyro. The idea here is that there's a ship that's going to leave a hangar. You need to remove all of the enemies in the area. The ship will leave the hangar. You'll get multiple waves of enemies coming at you. You need to protect that ship until it can get far enough away to quantum out. Very similar to the protect missions that we've seen in other variants, but this one has, I don't know, a bit of variety to it just because the ship is actually moving, and I don't know, it's nice to see the difference for sure. Jumping over into the miscellaneous category of changes that we have in this release, there's actually the green zone security that's been reactivated around the Stanton space stations. What this essentially means is if you have a high crime stat or are found to be attacking someone, obviously getting a crime stat from that as well, the station defenses will actually now turn on you as well. So you have to be, you're a criminal anyway, you have to be a lot more careful when you're flying towards the space stations now, as you will get attacked, whereas before you could pretty much land anywhere. Just keep that in mind. Now, around the asteroid bases, they've also put in monitored zones. That means that if you're committing crimes there, you're going to be flagged for them. That's in preparation for the larger event that's about to come down with this release as well. Just a couple other kind of smaller random things. The executive ship component loadouts have been reverted to the higher tier versions that they previously were. They've actually also introduced a new FPS weapon, the Volt pistol, that I'm sure you've seen. Again, I don't think pistols are used all that much in this game, but it is kind of nice to complete that set. Personally, I'm looking forward to the sniper rifle that's coming in the next release, though. Now, the ship battle missions will actually fail if the player leaves the mission area by more than 12 kilometers now. So no longer can you pull the funny stuff with the player's mission where you can claim it on the other side of the Stanton and actually get the rewards. You actually need to be in the area now to get the rewards, otherwise you'll fail the mission. Not necessarily a nice addition, but I do think it's an addition they definitely should have. QT interdiction was reintroduced, so you can actually be bumped out of quantum travel now again. It's something to be mindful of, so when you're setting your routes, make sure that you are moving partly between a station in a different direction and then jumping in the direction that you want, just so that pirates aren't stealing the stuff from the event that you're going to be working really hard to get. They've done a ton of network improvements as well. I know they had a lot of issues in the PTU. As seems to be the theme in the last couple of releases. They also have a bunch of new hairstyles going in. Now, There is the version 2 of ladders that was actually very quickly introduced and then pulled out of this release. But it was nice to see in the PTU that they're actually working on this. I guess I just wanted some feedback for version 3, and the community definitely gave them some feedback. With that being said, if you see somebody else say that it's in, it actually isn't in anymore. It was actually removed. Now, speaking of being removed, ground turbulence is also turned off for this release. I think that's nice because if you have people that are trying to surface mine, you're going to get a little bit frustrated with the ground turbulence. And I think they plan to bring it kind of back and do some tweaking just to make sure that it kind of works the way they wanted it to. Now, with the updated ship trespassing tech, it says that you can't really sneak aboard a ship if it's docked at a station, but you can if it's flying around a station. Now, in my testing of this, I couldn't actually reproduce this, and it never really seemed to kick me off the ship. But they claim that it's working, so if it works, it works. Now, finally, in the miscellaneous category, the missile lock system was also tweaked a little bit, and now the minimum size for a size 1 is actually 1.6 or 1.7 kilometers away from your target. So just keep that in mind if you're used to kind of going up to 1 kilometer and trying to get a missile lock. You can't anymore. You have to be back at least 1.6 or 1.7. I don't remember what the previous values were, but I think they're slightly different from the previous release. Now, as I start to look at the changes that they did to ships in this release, the list is absolutely massive. So I am going to summarize a little bit, but essentially they tweaked roughly 40 different ships. So, I mean, you can imagine if I were just to sit here and read those all out to you, how long this video would actually be. So first and foremost, we have the RSI Meteor that's launching with this release. The idea between the Meteor is it's a ship that's based off the Mantis frame. It's got very high weaponry on it, but very low shields. I believe it has 2 size 1 shields in it, but it does have like 2 size 5 bespoke cannons on it, 4 size 3 weapon hardpoints. Like, it's a very well equipped ship as far as guns, but the shields kind of suck. And that's really the idea, right? Is it's get in, hit your target, and get out. It's not meant for sustained combat. Like I say, that is based off of the Mantis frame. They've talked about it for a little while, and all the sneak peeks recently have really been pointing to it. So I think they're really excited. Although generally the community actually doesn't seem all that excited. So I really can't wait to get my hands on this ship just to do a review on it for you guys. They've also greatly reduced the high Idris turret health by a ton. The turrets are incredibly weak now. I think there actually might have been a mistake when they did it, and I think they may have made it too weak. But you can actually take out a turret in a few seconds, which I don't think you should be able to on a capital ship. So the normal variant of the Valkyrie has been upgraded to have the same doors and door panels that the Asgard has. Now, another big change in this release is the Reclaimer actually got 7 PDCs. That's huge. I love my Reclaimer, but one of my biggest problems was always trying to deal with the little ships that come to just bug you. Now, the shields in the Reclaimer were always so good that you really didn't have to worry about it too much, but it was still really annoying, so I'm really happy to see them getting PDCs on that ship. Now, unfortunately, they did also nerf the efficiency on the extraction. So it went from roughly 85% efficient to 55%. That's a 35% drop in the efficiency on the Reclaimer. Now, I mean, you do have a massive amount of storage, and the Reclaimer was always kind of buffed a little bit, so I guess it's for the better, but I will miss it nonetheless. So there's a whole slew of heavy fighters and interceptors that got a rebalance, and generally increasing in things like the maximum angular speed. There's a bunch of medium fighters and interceptors that also got a bunch of changes. It's really just kind of a tuning pass to deliver more distinct flight characteristics, I guess. Whatever that means. Now, that does apply to a lot of the alien ships. I think they wanted to make the alien ships actually fly alien, or at least give that feel, by adjusting things like the rotation max speed, the accelerations, the max number of Gs, and the SCM speeds. Now, the Mercury Star Runner also got an increase in the quantum fuel capacity and a slight buff to the critical health points. So the Ares Inferno actually got a reduction in the spread of its main weapon just to improve the accuracy. Now, if you watch the gunfire, it's almost firing in a perfectly straight line. So again, they may have kind of penduled a little bit too far on this one as well. And in the 400i, they added an additional size 2 power plant and cooler. Now, like I say, they also kind of randomly changed 34 other ships to tweak the SCM speed, the max speed, the pitch, yaw, and roll. Unfortunately, one of those was actually the Constellation series, which saw roughly a 10% hit on their max SCM speed. Now the Constellations, instead of all of them going the exact same max SCM speed, they actually do vary based on the variant that you choose by roughly 5%. So there's actually a bit of difference in there now, which is nice to see. I think the Constellations were always a little bit too close to one another. Now jumping over into the industrial changes for the industrial gameplay. It's a section I like to do just because it's one of my bigger interests in the game, and everybody talks about the PvP side of things. So not a lot in this release, which is kind of nice. It means that they've stabilized a lot of the mining and salvage stuff, especially given the event. I wouldn't want to see big changes right before the event. So they have reduced the cost to refine goods even further than it was before. They've also removed the discard cost of refining. So if you discard a material, you don't have to pay for that anymore. They've also introduced pure Karenite. Now there's a very small chance that you get that when you're mining in Hathor, but it's nice to see that they're actually starting to think about introducing different purities of the ores that you can actually pick up. Now, this is a small step in the right direction. By no means are they putting in crafting or refining gameplay that allows you to actually tweak that, but it's nice to see that they're starting to bring that into the game and really starting to consider that. Now, that pure Karenite is actually needed for some of those new ship recipes we talked about. And finally, the salvage times are actually now a lot faster than they used to be. So when you're scraping a ship, it's like 2 to 3 times faster than it was before, which is nice, but I don't actually think that there is any RMC needed for this event. So it's kind of slightly unrelated on the industrial side. Now, the biggest thing that's in this release that I really think is going to bring back some of those players that have been sitting on the sideline, the new event. So the official name on it is Resource Rush. There will be Inside Star Citizen on it on Thursday, I believe it is, diving into it. But essentially what it is it's an industrial event. It's really focused around the main corporations in Stanton. So the idea is that each of these main corporations are competing for a massive research contract. And the corporation that manages to gather the most resources will win the contract. Now, they're not really talking about what happens if, I don't know, Orison and Crusader manages to actually win the contract. But the idea is that you're trying to actually support your corporation that you like the most. And along with it, there are a bunch of customized items that you can actually get. So there's a series of ship paints that you can get for each of the different corporations with different colors. So I imagine you're going to see a lot of people who actually want to collect all of them and support all of the different corporations. But you don't have to in order to actually complete it. You just have to pick one. Once you gather enough resources for that one, you get all of the different paints and it's considered a success for you. So it is a time-limited event that's specific to the 4.2.1 release. So when this release is out of the PU, then it'll no longer be going on. It will never come back. You'll never be able to get these rewards again. Now, there is a mission that you have to do to actually unlock the series of missions, and you have to do that solo. After that, you can actually share the missions with other players. And as always, you kind of track your progress in the journal. So this has been called a few different things, but I think the official name is the Resource Rush. Now, the other important thing to note here is if you have a crime stat of 3 or higher, you cannot contribute. I think that will help to sway the PvP aspect of it a little bit. But unfortunately, I think what the pirate groups are probably going to do is they'll have their people with their crime stats who will actually go take the ship, steal the cargo, pass it on to someone without a crime stat who can then actually turn it in and sell it. I mean, it's a nice way to get around it. Hopefully it does kind of prevent the PvP aspect a little bit. But there are the other changes with the green zones around stations and stuff that I think are going to help, as well as the fact that the places they're sending you are going to be the random locations that you've never really been to, perhaps. I think that's going to help a lot as well, because it's not just a point-to-point. You're going to the random landing zones around or mining outposts or whatever it happens to be, pick up cargo. So, speaking of which, comes in kind of 4 different varieties. The first one is cargo hauling. So the idea here is that you are going to collect a resource from an outpost, take it off the freight elevator, and deliver it to a low orbit station. That'll get you both funds in game as well as credits toward the event. There's also defend ships, so you'll have to protect a cargo ship from waves of different enemies. That's probably why they introduced the new mission type that we talked about earlier. There's also a recover cargo, where you kind of go into a place that has stolen cargo and recover it. Now, I believe this is actually an FPS mission as well. So the idea is you fight, you move the boxes, and you deliver it to the place that needs to be delivered. And then finally, there's gather materials. So you can actually go take your prospector or your mole out, go get a bunch of copper, and turn that in for rewards as well. You don't need to move other people's cargo, so it really kind of opens it up, because who knows where you're going to be mining for this stuff. Now, it is also important to note for those pirates in the group that stolen cargo can also be submitted with the gather materials contract. However, you don't get the aUEC, so you don't get the money aspect reward of it. You just get credit towards the event. But if you have a bunch of stolen cargo that you've taken, you need to offload, and it's happened to be one of the things they're looking for, by all means. I mean, if it helps you in the event, it helps you in the event. So what do you need to know before this release goes into the PU? It's pretty typical of the other releases they've done this year. There are no planned wipes with this patch. Despite all of the cheating, they are not going to wipe your inventory or your aUEC. At least that's the plan anyways. Now, it's always a good practice to make sure you take any of the valuable components off of your ship and leave them in the station inventory. It's also a good idea to take and make sure all of your ships are claimed, nothing is in an unknown status, and everything is kind of in your hangar and accessible. It's just kind of the norm. I also normally take all of my FPS gear off and put it in my inventory. It tends to minimize the amount of stuff that you lose between patches. Now, they continue to tell us that you don't need to do this, and I continue to lose stuff every patch, but this does seem to minimize the stuff that I actually am. One other thing worth considering is you might want to take a look at the rewards that are available and choose who you are going to support. And I strongly suggest that you consider setting your starting location to a larger corporation like Crusader that you actually want to support, just to prevent you from having to fly all over the place to actually get the missions that you're looking for. Now, I also want to make note that there are a couple of relatively large known issues as it stands right now in the release. Now, full disclaimer, I mean, these could actually be patched by the time this video comes out, and I think it is probably going to be their intention to patch these. The first one that I found very annoying is that as you're moving items out of your inventory, they can actually bounce back into your inventory. So you will put a multi-tool on your belt, and it disappears off your belt and goes back into your inventory. That was incredibly annoying in the PTU trying to test that way. What I did find is if you're moving multiple items, just try a different item and then try the item you wanted again. Like go one, instead of 1, 2, 3, go 3, 2, 1, for instance. And changing up the order seemed to actually help with this, but you do definitely need to pay attention. I actually bought a bunch of stuff for the Wikelo mission to actually get past the starter mission, and ended up leaving it on the station inventory because I didn't realize it didn't go into my backpack. Again, you definitely need to pay attention to it. Naming, melting, or upgrading your ships will also delete any non-stock items that are on the ship at the time you did the action, and that includes ship liveries or paints. So if you do plan on naming your reclaimer, make sure that you take off any custom or valuable item, including the paints, off the reclaimer before you go to the website and name it, or you do stand to actually lose it, possibly forever. Another really interesting bug, the Idris shields can't stop laser weapons except for the Panther repeaters. I'm sure that they will patch that as quickly as they possibly can. Target lock also randomly drops. I mean, I've fought with a missile target lock since I started playing, But I guess there is a known issue where it actually drops, so maybe it's actually worse. I didn't notice it, but and then packages, when you're doing the package delivery missions, there's also a chance that you can't place the package. So it looks like that bug, which continues to plague us, has come back again. So with that one, you'll grab a package, you'll go to the destination, and you just can't put it on the shelf and actually claim that mission. Incredibly annoying, and I think those issues have been there since they introduced the package missions. Like I said before, this is a massive release that has a whole bunch of very useful features and new stuff being added into it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below if you think that you'll actually be returning to the game if you've taken a break, or does this event even interest you? I know it's actually one of the events that I'm probably the most excited for, or at least the most excited I've been since Supply and Die. But again, let me know what you think about this release and the event that's coming with it. This has been another video by Citizen Chaos, and I'll see you in the verse.